Well, hello everyone. Phil here from the Blue Envelope channel, and welcome to the fourth and final part of the series on Kingdom Farm. The first three we discussed the kind of the complete life cycle of that branch complex, from its purchase to a major shutdown of most of it in 1968 to the sale of what was left of it in 2015. And so, having considered kind of the complete arc of its existence, I think it's interesting now to go back and listen to a brief clip again of Anthony Morris, the current governing body member, and what he had to say about the construction projects going on now in the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses.
In harmony with what the faithful slave said then, the faithful slave now says many of the projects that are being worked on now, like Ramapo and the Good News According to Jesus video series, may or perhaps will carry over into the new world to assist the great crowd with the work ahead, and perhaps including resurrected ones.
So in this clip, Anthony Morris urges witnesses to support the current construction project for Ramapo, New York, the movie studios there. And his reasoning here is that even if the world ends a day after Ramapo is finished, building it will still have been a good use of time and resources. Why is that? Well, he says because Jehovah's Witnesses could very well use the complex after Armageddon to educate resurrected folks. And that is a very familiar refrain. As we now know, Joseph Rutherford, the second president of the Watchtower Society, offered the exact same reasoning 80 years ago about building Kingdom Farm and the Gilead building.
So we're very excited about any opportunity like this to serve Jehovah in this way, because we feel like that this building will stand into the new system, and it's a chance to have a part in something that is so special. And so we're pumped. I mean, we're ready for it.
And so what exactly was the life cycle of Kingdom Farm? Well, 35 years after it began, the Lansing complex was largely shut down in the 1960s, with just a little bit of farm activity left over after that. That exciting construction project for the 1930s Board of Directors of the Watchtower Society had turned into an essentially unwanted facility for the 1960s board. They were ready to sell it and start their own exciting construction project in Wallkill, New York, what would become the Watchtower Farms facility. That cycle has repeated time and again in the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. We saw that in the 2000s when the governing body at that time sold the Brooklyn Bethel facilities and completed their own exciting construction project in Warwick, New York, the current world headquarters complex. In an older video I made, rather cheekily titled Watchtower Secret Branch Complex, talking about their facility in Florida. But in that video, I talked a little bit about the life cycle of the branch in Paterson, New York. That was dedicated in 1999. It's called the Watchtower Educational Center. And at one time, Paterson was heavily used by the society. It actually was the home of the School of Gilead for a while. But it's gradually become less used, and once the movie studios in Ramapo are completed, the Paterson property will be mostly empty at that point. And so the question is, will the governing body of, say, the 2030s keep Paterson around out of respect for past Watchtower administrations and their decisions? Or is it more likely that it, too, will become an unwanted facility ready to be put up for sale? And we can extend it further. Down the road, what of Ramapo? Will the Ramapo complex finally be the one that actually survives Armageddon? Or is it more likely that the governing body of the 2060s will be starting their own exciting construction project and will be just about ready to sell the unwanted facilities in Warwick and or Ramapo? There's a second interesting factor to consider, and that is that the Watchtower Society is always ready to embrace new technology which can help to spread and further the Jehovah's Witness message. So in the 1920s and 30s, radio was king. And at that time, as a result, the society owned multiple radio stations in North America. And where are they now? Well, all of them have since been sold off. For most of the 20th century, print media was ubiquitous, and so the society owned very extensive printing and shipping facilities in Brooklyn, New York. And where are they now? All of them have since been sold off. In the 21st century, right now, streaming video services and 2D computer animated movies are currently a big part of our media consumption. And so the Ramapo facility is being built to fill that need. The question is, should we expect that technology has reached its apex and will not progress any further from where it is today? Or is it more likely that the technology we use 30 years from now will have shifted once again? You know, it's interesting to think that 30 years ago, there was no Facebook, no Google, no iPhones, iPads, no DVDs, and no streaming services. So that raises the question, what technology is going to be commonplace for us in another 30 years? And will Ramapo be suitable for that technology? Or is it more likely that Ramapo will gradually become like Kingdom Farm and Patterson, still usable for a while with enough modifications, but eventually it just becomes easier to build a new facility? There's a third interesting point to consider. This steady churn of building and selling branch complexes usually works out just fine financially. Real estate generally will always appreciate in value given enough time. It's a finite resource, and the Watchtower Society is able to build structures pretty economically. You know, for the most part, it no longer has to use salvage materials from one property to build another one, as when the Colesville Sanitarium was disassembled to erect the early buildings at Kingdom Farm. But the labor to build facilities is largely volunteered for free by Jehovah's Witnesses skilled in the trades. And labor is one of the largest cost centers of any construction project. The end result, you know, there's really no reason for the society to stop the cycle of construction projects. Almost every facility they own is eventually sold for a healthy profit. The money is then plowed back into the organization for whatever current construction project they're working on. From the Watchtower Society's perspective, there is no downside to the constant flow of construction. But what of individual witnesses who dedicate years or even decades of their lives to these projects? What, for example, of David Abiel, that first Bethelite at Kingdom Farm, who spent decades, at least 25 years of his life, perfecting the landscaping and stonework at Kingdom Farm, with beautiful results there on the property? How must he have felt to see that property, which was designed for witnesses' use after Armageddon to survive the end of the world, to see it sold off to the state of New York, to see tall fences with razor wire go up so it could be turned into a juvenile detention center? Did he ever question whether it had all been worth it, or wonder what the point of all that work had been? Witnesses today are urged to make similar sacrifices for the good of the organization. A notable 2021 video highlighted the example of a witness couple who gave their dog away so that they could work on the Warwick project.
One of the first things that my middle son Jess said, and he's been wanting a cow for 3 years. We just got him one probably about 2 weeks ago. And the first thing that he said when he heard that Dad was asked to leave next month to go was that he'd be willing to sell his cow for Dad's plane ticket.
Ons huis verkopen.
We had to sell our house and close our business.
Had to quit my job.
Probably one of the hardest things that we had to do was find a home for our dog. We eventually found her at home with a beautiful family. And then we packed our car and we started driving to New York.
There's a common saying among Jehovah's Witnesses that the world will chew you up and spit you out. Satan the devil is often portrayed as a devouring lion. But is it possible that it is the Watchtower organization that chews witnesses up and spits them out? A constant supply of healthy bodies is needed to fulfill the construction dreams of successive governing bodies.
And as parents, we now have a golden opportunity to work with our teenagers and help them to set a goal of working on this project. After all, these teenagers are our future construction servants. After all, these teenagers are our future construction servants.
I thought this was a project that was going to need strictly very experienced brothers and sisters. Early on, I realized I was wrong. It was going to take also youthful energy because of the volume of work.
Whether it was in the kitchen, or night watch, where the early 5 a.m. starts with the concrete crew at 10 degrees, their joy and their humility was outstanding to accept any work that needed to be done.
And a lot of young ones, brothers and sisters, moved into the area so they could commute.
And they would work day after day tirelessly, into the evenings even, to have the project ready for the next day. Their energy was just astonishing.
Jehovah loves young ones. Jehovah loves young ones.
Jehovah loves young ones.
And there is a final factor to consider about the continual construction projects. This is that they help keep Jehovah's Witness members very busy.
Jehovah's people are busier than ever before, in the ministry, in the congregation, and theocratic projects.
As we've seen during the COVID pandemic, the signature door-to-door preaching of Jehovah's Witnesses largely came to a halt. And yet, even without that, witnesses are kept incredibly busy by the organization. The constant stream of assignments and responsibilities is praised as a way to keep safe from the world. A 1976 Watchtower article explained that by engaging in such holy acts and deeds of godly devotion, we will keep ourselves so busy that there will be no time left to mingle with the world or to think about its ways. This lack of time to stop and think benefits the organization really in two ways. Yes, it's true that witnesses have no time to stop and think about the world. They also have no time to stop and think about their own religion. Is there ever something in it that doesn't quite make sense? Are there doctrinal changes or interactions with others which are perplexing to individual witnesses? With situations like that, it's usually just easier to put those issues up on a shelf, to wait on Jehovah to clear things up down the road. If witnesses had more downtime, it would give them an opportunity to reflect on their beliefs, especially on what they personally believe. They might come out of it with a faith deeper than ever. But then again, they might not. And for the Watchtower Society, that second possibility is just not worth the risk. As a result, the governing body has effectively taken as its mantra the words of the Pharaoh of Egypt, curiously enough. At Exodus 5, verse 9, the Pharaoh says, "Make them work harder, and keep them busy, so that they will not pay attention to lies." Well, the governing body has taken the Pharaoh's advice to heart. They keep witnesses so busy that there is no time to think about any inconsistencies in the doctrines or practices of the Jehovah's Witness religion. But perhaps the governing body has not fully considered what happened to the Pharaoh later on. As the story goes, in the end, God kills the Pharaoh, and the people are finally freed from their tedious labor. The governing body are also Jehovah's Witness members themselves, so perhaps they're just too busy to stop and think about that. And so the cycle of construction repeats. Once again, they are building for the future.
If your circumstances allow, we're sure your family will benefit spiritually from visiting Bethel. It warms our hearts during these visits to see children who love Jehovah and show an appreciation for spiritual things at such a young age.
After all, these teenagers are our future construction servants.
To bed when I grow up.